Your human personality. Your human personality is ephemeral and composed only of magnetic emotional bonding rejection impulses. Consequently, divine life must gradually impregnate more and more of your consciousness to impel you to strip away these gross impulses in order to reveal the spiritual reality. Perhaps I can best explain this to you by using a parable. A girl of great beauty was kept hidden within heavy gray veiling, and an ugly face was painted on it. Thus, the truth of her being was kept secret, and few ventured near her because of her unattractive appearance. She grew up and realized that the cause of her loneliness and misery, loss of freedom of movement and help, were due to the veils. But she was so accustomed to them that she felt she would not survive without them. However, she was fortunate enough to meet an enlightened mentor from another country and was ultimately persuaded to discard just one veil. After much searching for the inner strength to do so, she begged her mentor to help her. He lifted her hands, and together they discarded the veil on which the ugly face had been painted, and she felt much better for having rid herself of it. She began to feel a sense of joy. After a while, she was eager to rid herself of another veil, and again her mentor came to her and helped remove it. And so it continued. The more she shed, the lighter she grew, and she gradually glimpsed the reality of nature around her. She could see the trees clearly, the birds on the boughs, and listened enthralled to their beautiful songs. She saw the beauty in other people's faces and began to feel the flow of love in her heart. Life was now becoming a truly divine gift to be treasured. Daily, she gave thanks to her mentor for helping her become such a happy person. Finally, the time came when she could no longer bear the final veil around her. She knew it was shutting her off from even greater light, beauty, harmony, and loving contact with other beautiful people. Although she did not know how she would manage without it, she retired into the silence with her mentor and pleaded to have this last veil removed. This was a time of agony, since the veil appeared to be part of her being. But she begged and pleaded, and in a moment of brilliant light, the veil was burnt off her. The form that was left was her reality, and she came into perfect inner freedom. However, her individualized reality now had to find a way to function in the environment. This was unexpectedly difficult. Because her perceptions of reality surrounding and within herself were now so clear and transcendent, the ground of her communication with other people had radically changed. She was no longer at peace in the social and business environment, nor could she remain a member of her community. People looked at her and said, "Oh, this is who you are, and you have no veil. How dreadful! We find you very odd, even a little mad." They turned their backs on her. What do you think she did? Did she long to go back to the time when she was veiled as heavily as others? No. She had found such peace, joy, and fulfillment of need. She left her community and went into a retreat and joined other souls who would recognize her true identity and respond to it with love and joy. Tell me, was her veiling her personality transformed? No. With the help of her mentor, She removed her own veiling when she was convinced by her mentor, divine life consciousness, it was the right thing to do. As she removed the different layers of veiling, she came closer and closer to intimate knowledge of the reality soul hidden by her veiling, the personality. You can probably understand now that the human personality is like a mental, emotional cobweb, sometimes a dirty veiling of mass interactions between magnetic attraction bonding and magnetic repulsion revulsion. Spiritually, evolved people can see this dirty veiling clouding the skin of people whose language is coarse and their thoughts solely centered around earthly ego activities. Alternatively, as an individual leaves behind levels of earthly thoughts and responses, the skin begins to clear and a light shines in the eyes, whilst the earth personality is imperceptibly dying away. The body becomes more spiritualized. This is clearly visible to people who have the gift of spiritual perception. Do not be afraid of future withdrawal from the earthly mindset. You will relinquish it little by little with infinite relief. Your true goal in life will become ever more clear, and your determination to reach it will grow ever more strong. You may argue that you are not often mentally or emotionally engaged in magnetic emotional thoughts and feelings. But when you examine your spontaneous thoughts, you will find that you are completely dominated by magnetic attraction bonding and magnetic repulsion revulsion thoughts all day long. Your mind keeps up a ceaseless chatter of comments and judgments, criticisms, wants, don't wants, reactionary feelings verging on resentment or rejection, longing for certain things and fears that the longings will not be fulfilled, striving for success and irritation or anger with those who stand in the way of that success. When the ego is in control, the one who prays does so with faith and yearning. Immediately after prayer, on meeting someone, the trauma just taken to God to be dealt with in the right way is sorrowfully aired to gain the comfort of human sympathy. But the consciousness, form, and force released during prayer, the asking, the faith, and the yearning are now canceled by the self-pity. The mind is usually a bog, a quagmire of conflicting ideas. During stress, a person may strive to focus on a life-giving affirmation or perception, but, like a playful puppy tossing a paper bag filled with air, the thought is soon swept out of mind, and the stressful thinking the person was trying to avoid has once again taken hold. And so it goes on in the mind, back and forth, until the person longs to escape the conflict. Your internal dialogue will probably go along lines similar to, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get breakfast. I don't want to make sandwiches. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to meet so-and-so today. I don't want to do the laundry. I don't want to do this, that, and the other. And so the litany of rejection of life continues with thoroughly disgruntled people all day long. However, instead of mentally complaining, the dialogue may be along the lines of, I don't feel like. All these feelings come from ego drives, which rejects such activities since they are perceived to be a bore, uncomfortable, or a burden. Alternatively, you may wake up and say or feel, it's Saturday. I must hurry and dress and get to the market. There are things I want to buy. I must get some of those strawberries before they're sold out. I must get down to the sales to find some bargains. I'm going to speak nicely to my husband to give me some money. I do hope I see Patrick when I go to his office. I want that new boss to like me, so I'll work extra hard and I'll look attractive for him. I hope my husband buys the new car. I'm certain I'll find a parking space if I remain positive. I hope I get a bonus. All these foregoing ideas come from the ego bonding impulses. I want. You may also string together several bonding and rejection feelings. I hope my children go to sleep early so that I can relax. I hate it when they call for water and want me to read to them when I'm so tired, but I ought to be a good mother and spend a little time with them. I hope that I can. I ought. Good mother. Spend time are all connected by the magnetic attraction bonding. These are the things you want for yourself. These thoughts also arise from fears. Fears of being asked to do more than you feel you can do at this moment. Fears of failure as a mother. Fear is a direct impulse experienced from the ego, which demands that you measure up in order to be acceptable to yourself and other people, and yet is very much aware that you do not. With the development of civilization, the magnetic bonding rejection impulses have become so complicated and interwoven that they are difficult to differentiate and discern. I hate it. Call for water. Want me to read. I'm so tired. Are all magnetic rejection, revulsion feelings, and since it requires more energy to reject and push away than to accept and bond with, the conflict within you will end up by making you feel even more dispirited and tired, even feeling guilty, but unable to find the strength to do what you would really, deep down, like to do. Spend more time with your children. Read to them and mother them. This would give you a sense of satisfaction and well-being, because at an even deeper level, you know you would be experiencing and expressing love, whereas all the wants and don't wants are a coating hiding the feeling of love. When you are in tune with your deepest recesses of being and are experiencing and expressing love, you are truly at peace and happy. At the same time, notice that in this interior monologue, which goes on all the time in caring mothers, the little interjection of, I ought to spend a little time with them, is an insight drawn directly from divine life consciousness. But you will probably believe it is your conscience telling you what you ought to do. Perhaps you are beginning to see that your mind and emotions are like a war arena, with conflicting ideas following each other so rapidly that you are completely unaware of what you are doing to yourself. Your mind is a seesaw. Your beliefs, opinions, reactions change according to any changes you find in relationships and environment. A seesaw of likes and dislikes, resentment and friendship, possessiveness and rejection. All of this hubbub arises out of superficial understanding of all that is really taking place in your environment at a subterranean level. You are like boats sailing the seas. You can see the sky, but you have no inkling at all of the growth, movement, and life activity taking place under your keel. This means that you may think you are relating to someone in a real way, but underneath the surface and behind their pleasant exterior, your friend may feel lonely in your presence and aching to be understood and spoken to on a level more sensitive and empathetic, more suited to their needs as well as yours. Take, for instance, the following example. On the face of it, it appears to be completely harmless both to yourself and other people. But an analysis will show you it is anything but innocuous. I hope that bad-tempered woman is away from work today. First, to be able to make such a statement in your hidden consciousness, you have reviewed her behavior and condemned her for the problems she causes by her bad temper. You have hung a label around her neck, bad-tempered woman. You have created a consciousness energy force with her name on it. It won't do her any good. You want, magnetically, not spiritually, that she should be absent from work to make life more pleasant for you. In the above statement, you reveal you are in the grip of ego completely, since you did not pause to wonder whether she was subject to any problem of character personality, any hidden sickness, misery, financial problem causing her to be short-tempered. The hope she will be absent is in the nature of a curse on her. If your thinking was sufficiently passionate and powerful, she will probably pick up the negative consciousness energy force and suddenly feel too unwell to go to work. The same principle is involved in the development of emotional tension into nervous breakdowns. At the onset of emotional tension, the mind and emotions begin to race with magnetic emotional rejection, repulsion, revulsion feelings. A person engages in continual thoughts such as, I can't cope, which is a rejection and outright denial of any existing energy that the person does have to deal with the crisis. I can't bear it also denies personal strength. I hate this happening to me. I hate the person doing this to me. I hate having to change my lifestyle. I hate, I deny, I refuse, I object, I oppose, I don't deserve. A particularly virulent consciousness form, thoughts, I'll get my own back, is a mixture of magnetic bonding rejection. In reality, the consciousness of such a sentence is, I hate him and what he has done so much that I will teach him a lesson. I will do to him exactly what he has done to me. I'll make him pay. This is pure revenge. Revenge is a boomerang which magnetically returns, bestowing suffering of some kind on the thinker. If he is on the path to Christ consciousness, it will also teach the sender a much-needed lesson. All these foregoing thoughts and feelings, including the killer resentment, bring on nervous, even physical, breakdowns. There may be some people reading these letters who will remember my confrontation with the fig tree near Bethany. I was hungry and foolishly looked for figs when they were out of season. When I found none, I said to the tree, May no one ever eat of your fruit again. And the tree withered to its roots and was dead by the following day, much to the astonishment of Peter. This was a time when I, as Jesus, was thoroughly irresponsible in the use of my mind power and caused damage for which I was contrite. I explained the true reasons for this incident fully in letter 3. However, when speaking to my disciples, I also used it as an example and warning of the power exercised by mind over living things. Let it be said, also, that on that day I whipped and drove the money-lenders out of the temple, and harshly denigrated the scribes and Pharisees to their faces. All these activities were magnetic emotional bonding rejection impulses. Deliberately, I set the seal on my soon-to-be death by crucifixion. I knew exactly what I was doing, for my time on earth was drawing to a close, and, to tell the truth, I was eager to leave your world. When people first come on to the spiritual path and seek a higher power, many are taught by self-help teachers to engage in magnetic emotional bonding, thoughts to a greater degree, although such teachers have no idea that their instructions are serving to strengthen the power of the ego. The spiritual aspirant is taught, if you meditate, God, or the power of my subconscious, will help me get all my needs. I'm going to visualize the house I want, and I know I'll get it. I'm going to buy the clothes I need and have faith that I'll somehow find the installments. They concentrate on having faith and on getting what they need or want. At the beginning of their change in consciousness and the exercise of their faith, they do indeed feel great benefits. The desired objects do come into their lives. They find doors opening. They achieve success. This phenomena reveals that the material planes of their consciousness are becoming more spiritualized, and, as a result, there are improvements in them. Life is less hard. But your lives are meant to express every level of your consciousness: mind, emotions, body. When you have mastered the physical realms of consciousness, your next adventure into spirituality is in the realm of your emotions. Therefore, suddenly, in the midst of your plenty, the winds blow and the rains fall upon your previously stable emotional consciousness, creating manifold miseries of every kind. These can be in the nature of loss of family, health, or possessions, sudden setbacks of numerous kinds in numerous areas of your life. It is at these times that so many lose their previous faith. Positive thinking doesn't work, they affirm. No, positive thinking on its own does not work. Neither does the power of your subconscious, since it is only a facet of your entire spiritual human being. When your emotions are in upheaval, you are being called to examine your entire consciousness, your beliefs, your feelings toward yourself and others, your faith in a spiritual dimension, even the meaning of death and your life afterwards in a higher dimension. This is an extremely painful time in the lives of people. All are subject to this time of upheaval in one form or another. It can be a time of tremendous inner growth and a movement into happiness, or an ongoing time of bitterness and resentment. This is the time to wake up fully and realize that the outcome of the experiences are entirely up to you, not fate or destiny, but you, either working on your own or devotedly and consistently with divine consciousness, arriving eventually at the height of felicity. It is at this time also that a person is challenged to use the mind constructively, reaching for the highest insights and ideals with which to master the emotions. The difference between reactive thought, arising from impulsive ego responses to uncomfortable situations, and creative, intelligent, thoughtful thought will become clear. When this takes place and the insight is put into daily practice, self-mastery is close at hand. Only the teachers who can lead you through all the levels of self-realization, remorse, awakening, changing mental emotional patterns, moving ever upward into higher spiritual frequencies of vibrations until reaching true God realization, are the teachers of truth, who can truly lead you into the kingdom of heaven. If the first level of development seeking material satisfactions through positive thinking, were wholly satisfactory to seekers and brought them all they hoped for, the whole world would, by now, have been converted to the belief in positive thinking. However, this is the starting point of the previously quiescent soul's spiritual journey and is not to be rejected or criticized. The psyche wakes up to the fact that beyond the earthly dimension, there is some spiritual dimension called God, a person sitting up there, or a universal power which answers prayers. Remember, we are talking about consciousness. The psyche is becoming aware that there is more to life than the daily grind and wants to experience whatever it is, because deprivation in some area of existence, health, financial means, happiness, love, etc., is causing it to seek help. Here we have the same magnetic emotional bonding at work. I want. However, as the awakening psyche becomes an observer of what is going on in mind and emotions, through its filtered contact with life consciousness, it will begin to see some of the magnetic emotional bonding rejection activities it is engaging in. Eventually, it will be sufficiently enlightened to turn from the possessive repulsion feelings and will pray for help to overcome them. It is usually at this time that the right teacher for that soul will come into his life. If the soul has traveled the road of life several times, then it will be some teacher who has evolved sufficiently to lead the seeking soul out of the chains and bondage of the ego drive and forward into light. Remember, in your approach to others, be careful of their egos. It is their sole means of internal survival until they have gained a real and lasting glimpse of divine consciousness, and they also perceive that they have within, and transcendent to themselves, a source of strength, power, and inspiration. You must also realize that in becoming individualized into bodily form and mental emotional activity, you are subject to the laws of existence. You have been given individuality and identity and infinite potential of achieving Christ consciousness, and there is a price to pay for these. For perhaps many lifetimes, until you are educated into this rare knowledge of self, you will experience the vagaries and multitudinous complexities of life and relationships. In many lives in the past, you may have done outrageous things considered by others to be sin personified, but these magnetic personality experiences will have contributed to bringing you where you are today in spiritual perception. Therefore, you should be able to accept that there is no sin against a God, and there is no sin against others. The ego can only have total control and do reprehensible things because the soul is still asleep within the heavy cobweb bondage of the magnetic personality. Where this is the case, there is no possibility of persuading such a person he has done wrong against others. There is no interior illumination from light to show him a better way to live. It is entirely blocked by the ego magnetic consciousness. However, the pain such a person experiences, since everything he does to others will return with full measure and more, will ultimately make him question existence, and asking questions is the means by which to receive answers from divine life. I began this section by saying that people believe they can be transformed by spirit. Now, you understand why I said there is nothing to be transformed. There is nothing real or eternal in the personality. There is a great need to strip it away to reveal the divine within. In Palestine, I called this process a dying to self, which has proved to be a frightening statement. Because of it, many people have been deterred from stepping onto the path leading to the highest spiritual dimensions. And yes, that last step in the stripping process is indeed like a death. A person loses an essential part of his human, earthly self whilst undergoing it. But the relief and the inner peace experienced when the struggle is finally over cannot be described. Joy fills the heart. There is true security, rest, and tranquility in the silence of the mind. At last, the struggle for personal control is over. The person becomes a master. There follows a time of spiritual rest and recuperation. This is later followed by a stepping into a new dimension of being. Nothing in the human scene matters as it did before. People criticize you. Previously, the magnetic personality would have made you feel angry because of your insecurity, your driving need to appear perfect to everyone in order to gain approval. If you do not have approval, the ego argued, how will you survive? What will your life be like? When the voice of the ego has died away, there is no need to seek security, for you are secure. You know that you are sustained, maintained, nourished, protected, healed by divine life consciousness, no matter what others may think of you. Your joy, gladness, happiness, personal fulfillment, and contentment are all inside you. In fact, you no longer need otherness at all. Except you are a part of all otherness, and when the light fills you, you have a driving need to render to others all that divine life consciousness is pouring into you every moment of the day as you keep in constant touch with this beautiful dimension within you. No longer do you reject the personality of others. Everyone is acceptable to you. Everyone is in need of love, and now you have plenty of that to give. No longer is it a struggle to love unconditionally. It comes spontaneously. Whatever faults you may have left, whatever mistakes you make in your attitudes to others, as a result of remnants of the ego left behind, these are revealed to you, but you do not shy away from self-knowledge, but rather embrace it with love and thanksgiving. You discover that recognition and acceptance of the negative human reactions in yourself is both wholesome and healing. You happily accept and take responsibility for whatever mistakes you make, and then, when you have discerned the loving way, you let it go. You will experience inner peace, knowing that you have learned something else valuable, which will stand you in good stead when next you are challenged by earthly experiences. The time for deep remorse is over, since it has now done its work of releasing you from magnetic emotional responses to life which brought you suffering in the past. You have now entered what I termed Kingdom of Heaven when I was on earth. You will find that all your needs are supplied, and you will know that any needs in the future will also be met almost spontaneously. This knowledge keeps you in constant touch with divine life and gives you an immense sense of security. With the peace of mind and tranquility come joy and happiness and a new sense of youthful well-being. Minor or chronic or even terminal ailments will be cleared up, and you will again enter into a new phase of existence. Each time you learn a lesson, you leave something of the human dimension behind you and move forward into a higher frequency of spiritual consciousness. I am describing for you the rewards which await you when you have struggled and dealt with the magnetic emotional bondage of attraction, bonding, rejection, repulsion. It is these which initially give you individuality, but which become fetters of the soul, and from which you must break free in order to get off the treadmill. This treadmill is the span of your present human life, continually turning, continually bearing you into experiences you do not enjoy. When, at last, you are able to transcend, in spirit, your magnetic emotional reactions to life, the treadmill will begin to slow down, and then, suddenly, you will find that you are almost stationary, and you will begin to experience the beautiful quality of life I have described above. Would that I could remove this burden imposed on you by your earthly humanhood. I know your suffering, your times of despair, your grief in the lonely night, your hours of mental and emotional turmoil. As I descend into your consciousness frequencies to transmit my messages and to understand what needs to be said to you, I become aware of your earthly conditions, and these words are my response to your most urgent needs for relief and healing. Do not doubt these words are from me. Take comfort from them, and know that as you study these words, they will, in time, bring you deep illumination within your soul, which will bring about the longed for changes in your life and self.